had a friend who asked me to make bread and put it on YouTube, and so this is my first baking on YouTube. We'll see how this goes. Before I start, I want to read the first couple of verses of Psalm 91. I'm sure you're well aware of this psalm. You've read it probably many times. It's a fantastic entire psalm. But the first two verses say, "Those who live in the shelter of the Most High will find rest in the shadow of the Almighty. This I declare about the Lord. He is my refuge, my place of safety. He is my God, and I trust him." And that's kind of where I'm coming from spiritually. But today we're going to bake bread. Now, let me say that there's a reason why I started baking bread many years ago, probably 8 or 9 years ago. We like whole wheat bread, and it was getting so expensive. And there's cheap whole wheat bread, but did you know that a lot of that has raisin juice in it? I mean, I cannot think of anything more disgusting than putting raisin juice in bread. But anyway, I could taste it, and so the good kind got really expensive. So I told my husband, well, I think I'm just going to start baking it, and I did. Well, and then once you do, you kind of get addicted. So it's hard to go back to regular bread. But anyway, that's what we're going to do. So first, hang on. I have just a little over 3 cups of warm water. There's only one way that I've ever tested the water, and that's by putting my wrist into it. And if it doesn't burn it, then it's fine. So, you know, you can do it however you want, but I don't use a thermometer or anything like that. So what we do, I use Rapid Rise yeast. And so I don't use the other kind. I'm not patient enough. So I use 2 packages of yeast, and I check my water kind of just to make sure it's not too hot or warm enough. So anyway, we're going to dissolve 2 packages of this yeast in the water and kind of stir that. We're going to, again, dissolve it. And then as we're stirring it, you can do this. It's not like rocket science or anything like that. You can just start adding some of your ingredients, which I have half a cup of oil and a half a cup of brown sugar. I use light brown. Again, you can test and try. This isn't hard. You can do it. And then I use about a tablespoon of salt. So those are kind of the ingredients that I dissolve. And we're going to dissolve that up real good, and then I'm going to show you how to add the other stuff. But while I'm mixing this, right now I use Bob's Red Mill whole wheat flour. My favorite is Hodgson's Mill, but I can't find it except to order it, and that's super expensive. So I've gone to this, and it's not bad. It's pretty good, and I'm pretty picky, so yeah, it's good. And I have 3 cups of that in this bowl. Now, I want to tell you right off, as I stir here and try not to make a mess, I don't measure, okay? So for this video, I have measured things. So I'm going to dump it in, and if it looks right, then that's the measurement you need to use. So I do that, and then I use unbleached flour. So we've got 3 cups of this. So this is pretty well dissolved. And again, it's going to be okay. The Rapid Rise yeast makes a whole lot of difference. I think it's easier. So 3 cups of the whole wheat flour. And I'm going to see if that's enough. Because again, I usually go by look on this, which I know that's going to kill some of you guys. But it's just, you know, that's how it is. And of course, that's not enough. So we're going to dump some more in here. I'd say another, I don't know, 2/3 cup or so, which looks great. Okay, so now we're going to say about a 3.5 to 3 2/3 cup of the whole wheat flour. And it should look like this, if you can see that, I hope. If you can't, then again, you want it pretty soupy, okay, but not too thin. Oh, I know. That's not much help, is it? Okay, so in the unbleached flour, I have 4 cups. I'm starting with 4. Again, I don't measure this, so I'm kind of experimenting along with all you guys, and we're going to dump that in. There's 4 cups, which is not nearly enough, I can already tell. And we are going to stir that and get it to a consistency where you can knead it. And that's a little tricky. Not really, but I mean, you want to be able to put it out on a floured board. And by the way, I've cleaned all my cabinet off. It's all clean. I don't use a board or anything like that. I just use my cabinet. And that's pretty sticky. So that was 4 cups. I'm thinking, well, we're going to measure here, which this just goes kind of against what I do, but we're going to do it. I'm going to do it for you guys. So there's another cup. So we're at 5 cups now. And that's looking actually pretty good. So, it's looking like maybe I can put it out onto the cabinet and start kneading it. Which, okay, I'm going to try to show you this. See, it's kind of starting to get into a ball, and I could probably work that. And that's what I'm going to do. And I wanted to tell you too, I am represented here by Texas. I have my Texas coffee cup, which I drink coffee every time I cook or anything like that. And I also have my little tea towel that one of my granddaughters made. I think this was Lacey who made this. And I want to honestly dedicate this to this show to my grandkids who I've baked with. That's Jaren, Elise, Carly, and Claire. And I love you all, and I love all my grandkids, but those are the ones I've baked with. So now, I also want to dedicate this to the lady who taught me how to bake bread, and that's Fontella Garris. So, okay, I'm going to load down my cabinet with flour, and then just going to dump this on here, and this is where the fun starts, the kneading. And that's specifically one thing that a friend of mine asked about, and it just takes time. And if you want to use a KitchenAid thing, you know, to knead it, my daughter-in-law says that her bread came out the smoothest she just ever had it when she used that, which is great. I don't use one, and so anyway, pour some flour on there because you want to be able to work it without it sticking. And then we're just going to start kneading, and I just kind of start, you know, like this. And I have to tell you, one time I had my shoulder was hurting me so bad, and I couldn't get it fixed. I couldn't work it out. And I thought, you know, I want to make some bread and see what that does. Well, by the time I was done kneading and working my shoulder, it felt a lot better. Okay, so you can see this is already forming into a nice ball here of dough, and which is fun. Okay, now this is going to have to be kneaded just like this. You just use the heels of your hand and just knead it. And you want to knead it until it's kind of smooth and elastic. So I'm going to do this, and while I do this, we're going to take a little break, and you guys can come back to part 2 if you would like to. So I'm just kneading, and it's going to be turned off.